Now, today is International Day of Democracy. It is a day the United Nations General Assembly set aside to encourage governments to strengthen national programs. Joining us in the studio to discuss the significance of this day is an Executive Director of Policy and Governance, Yemi Adamolekun. Many thanks for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's go to the role of civil society in Nigeria and, of course, its importance to democracy. How important is civil society to democracy?
It's extremely important. I mean, I think it's the arm of society that basically gives voice to citizens and sort of enables citizens to organize around a common issue. So you have civil society organizations that focus on a variety of things, from governance to health issues to education to climate change. So civil society organizations basically rally around an issue that's of importance and act as a pressure group, both working with government and pressuring government to act on certain issues.
Yes, the theme of this year's International Democracy Day is Space for Civil Society. Now, how effective has civil society been in keeping governments of various countries accountable?
Well, I mean, I'll use Nigeria as an example. I think without a doubt, one can speak about the role of civil society in our return to democratic rule. So even before, in a sense, Nigeria's return to democratic rule in 1999, civil society has played a huge role in making that possible. Following the elections of 1993 and the annulment of the Abiola elections, it was really civil society rallying around and citizens rallying around to insist that Nigeria must return to democratic rule and that we've had enough of military regime. And so since 1999 till today, we have a longest stretch of democratic rule in Nigeria. And it's definitely here to stay, as this is now a form of governance that Nigerians are used to.
What is the federal government doing to accommodate the civil society that is not right, that could give the civil society more space, to carry out its activities?
I guess on the flip side, I think it was under the 7th Assembly, there was an attempt to pass a bill that would restrict how civil society gets funding and how civil society organizations organize. And that definitely would provide, would be a hindrance, really. If government, because the idea of civil society is to keep government in check. If government now dictates how you collect funding or how you organize, that then becomes a problem. But I mean, even today is International Day of Democracy. It's also the beginning of the Global Legislative Openness Week that focuses on the nationalist or the legislative arm of government. And that's also an incredible platform to keep those who form laws in check as well.
Now, there is the question of unity amongst civil society in Nigeria. Social divisions, tribalism, inequality is still predominant in this part of the world. Even the president was accused of appointing majorly people from the north. And people seem to think he's been really, really particular with the north because that's where his roots lie. But when are we ever going to get past all of these divisions and then to work together as a unified team?
But we do. I mean, yes, there are civil society organizations that are locally based. I mean, we do run a federal structure, so there should be nothing really wrong with there being a civil society organization that focuses in the southwest or the southeast or the northeast. But when issues arise that actually bring that affect the country as a whole, civil society organizations do work together. The Bring Back Our Girls campaign is a classic example. The Chibok girls were kidnapped from the northeast, but some of the leading faces are not from that part of the country. So that gives it's a classic example. The bill against violence against persons in Nigeria was actually promoted by a coalition of civil society organizations that cut across the country from the north to the southeast to the southwest. So when issues arise, we do come together to work together.
But is our civil society strong enough, especially when faced with political and societal threats?
What do you mean by that? The threats like?
I'm talking about societal threats, like we're talking about insurgency in Nigeria, like I just mentioned, tribalism and inequality. I mean, is our civil society strong enough to handle the political?
But it's part of life. Equality is in all parts of the world. So the idea really of civil society is that you continue to have them to try to bridge those gaps. So as long as those gaps exist, civil society would always be there. And those are things that are challenges of life, and we continue to build and grow. And as civil society organizations in Nigeria find their voice, because I mean, you can only find your voice in an environment that allows you to speak.
Absolutely.
So under military regime, there were civil society organizations, but that was the whole fight of giving space and giving voice. So now, 1999 till now, relatively young democracy, and compared to places like the US or the UK, but it continues to grow and people continue to find their voice.
Now, still talking about democracy, some countries that claim they practice democracy still exhibit some undemocratic tendencies, such as jailing people for expressing their minds. Yeah. My question now is democracy universal, or does it vary with countries?
It definitely varies with countries. And there's no, I mean, the popular definition of a democratic government is a government for the people, by the people, of the people. But you're right, depending on where a country is in their sort of evolution, the practice of democracy will change. And so, as people say, there's no one definition of democracy. People use it in different forms, it comes out in different forms. But the heart of it really is a system of government that allows people to choose who represents them and policies that affect their lives.
Well, thank you so very much, Yemi Adamolekun, as the Executive Director, EIE Nigeria,
thank you
for sharing your thoughts with us on the International Democracy Day.
Thank you.